Well, welcome everyone to our second precious metals work group. I am Marlo Oakes, State Treasurer, and why don't we just briefly go around and introduce ourselves. Ken, why don't you introduce yourself just quickly, your name?
Yeah, sure. Representative Ken Ivory, HB 348, Precious Metals Amendment, got this party started and continues on work that we've done over the years, and excited to have everyone here and help us have Utah continue to move forward in our leading role in advancing our economy as it relates to precious metals.
Excellent, thank you. And let's just go to the other committee members, actually Brittany and then Hugh, and we'll just kind of go around the table here and then grab everybody online.
Brittany Griffin with the Treasurer's Office.
Well, that was right to it. Hugh Hannison, a fintech executive, started my career at IBM on Wall Street and currently CEO of a local fintech company.
Josh Husbauer, with Branch Global Services. Richard Watson, the Senior Director of Operations, a primary responsibility for all of our precious storage operations.
Scott Wood, I am the local manager of all services here in Salt Lake City.
Brian Summers, President of the Utah Mining Association.
Larry Hilton with Legal Tender Services.
Mark Hilton with Alpine Gold Exchange.
Kurt Slaw, I'm in the Treasurer's Office.
Hi, I'm Jason Cousins. I'm the founder and the CEO of Glint.
Great. And then online, let's go. Let's see, is that Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin Freeman from Texas Economic War Room.
Great, welcome. And I can't see very well who all's up there.
Jason Gardner.
Jason Gardner. Jason. Oh, I think you're muted, or somebody's muted somewhere.
Who's that?
Well, we come back. There we go. Yep, that's great.
Jason Gardner, Director of Legislative Affairs at the Tax Commission.
Great, thank you, Jason. Susan.
Hi, Susan Spears, Utah Association of CPAs.
And Joseph.
Hi, everyone. Joseph Cavatoni, based in New York with the World Gold Council, but coming to you live from Ottawa, Canada, on probably the smallest table in the world, which makes me look like I'm 9 feet tall. So if I go off camera, it's because I'm terribly uncomfortable with it. So great to be here, and thank you.
Thank you. Sophia.
Hi, Sophia DiCaro with the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget. Happy to be with you today. Thank you.
Excellent. Gary.
I'm Gary Crittenden, recovering COVID-ite, trying to make sure you all stayed healthy.
Oh, excellent. All right. And Daryl.
Daryl Rudy, Department of Financial Institutions.
Excellent. Welcome. And I think that's it. Did I miss anybody?
Oops. If we missed you, let us know.
Yeah. We got Susan, right? Susan Spears. Okay. All right, great. Looks like we got everybody. Okay, perfect. All right, we distributed the minutes. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? We tried to make them pretty comprehensive.
So just say that Brittany's done a great job. That was very well done.
Easy to get everything that was done there. So, okay, great.
Hey, Mark.
If there are no, yes.
I'm hoping I'm looking at the right minutes. Did you have minutes for the last meeting on there, and it showed Randy Quarles attending, and I don't remember seeing him down in Alpine, or maybe I was looking at the wrong set of minutes, but that's a question I had.
Oh, yeah, so this was for the meeting at the Capitol, the first precious metals work group. So we did not have minutes from the offsite field trips. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, I know that Joe, you mentioned some really great research and documentation from the World Gold Council. I don't know if that's something you sent to the treasurer's office or like if it was going to come to the committee. I don't know. I just wanted to follow up on it because it sounded like terrific information.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll follow up.
Now, I circulated it to the attendees to the last meeting. I'm not sure if everybody that was there was on that attendee list because it might not have included those that were in person. So I'm happy if someone sends me a distribution list that's appropriate for everyone, I'll resend it again, but the information's out in terms of the case for gold and some of the other material. And since we last spoke, the central bank survey report that we had talked about as well is complete and in circulation. So I can send that in addition. So happy to
Great.
I'm
resend.
happy to contribute as well.
Yeah, yeah, and you got that.
Yeah, I believe I
think we
did.
got it, yeah. So
Yeah.
if you need it, just let Brittany know and we'll get that to you. All
Brittany,
right.
are you okay for me to send you that central bank report? I'll send it to you directly and then let you handle the. That's even
That's great.
easier for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, since our last meeting, we had a couple of offsite field trips, if you will. Ken, do you want to just briefly mention the Alpine Gold?
Yeah, I mean, we'll hear from them a little bit later today, but we had the opportunity to go on site, visit Alpine Gold, the Goldback operation, the vault that they have there, and see some of the things that have happened already in Utah from the legislation we did in 2011 and later. And yeah, it's really exciting to see things materialize from some of the work that we've done and the opportunities we have going forward.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the discussion to hear more from them today.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to hearing from them as well as friends from Brinks Global Services, and we had a small group from the treasurer's office actually go tour the Brinks facility here in Salt Lake, and so looking forward to hearing from you in just a moment. And then of course we've got Jason Cousins here from LintPay that'll be talking about platforms and different ways of transacting in the marketplace. So why don't we go ahead and turn the time over to Josh of Brinks Global Services, and we're going to learn a little bit about kind of the physical precious metals market and talk about, of course, any questions that people have. Happy to entertain those, but really appreciate Brinks being here and talking about the services that they provide.
We're very happy.
Thank you.
Sure, just give me a moment here while I
No
get
problem.
this up and running, make sure everyone can see the slides. All right, excellent. Is everyone able to see that? Hear me clearly? All right, well, we'd like first to thank you for inviting us here today to be part of this work group and share a little bit more.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. Slide down a little bit more if you want.
Let's see, it's just stuck.
Okay.
I just got hooked up. Is it back on? There we go. Okay.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for having us here today and giving us an opportunity to share a little bit more about Brinks, what it is that we do as a business and what we do here in the state of Utah. And we appreciate your time and for inviting us. Today, I'll share a little bit about Brinks itself and what we do. And then my colleague, Rich Watson, will share a little bit more specifically about our vaulting services and our precious metal services. So Brinks is a company. Most people have some familiarity with Brinks and who we are just from the name. Brinks started in 1859 and is really active in cash services. So cash vaulting, cash transit. Globally, we do ATM servicing and we work very extensively in the cash zone. So when you see a Brinks truck on the street, typically what you're seeing is something that's involved in our cash services divisions. Now, Brinks operates in 52 countries, and we service customers in more than 100 countries globally. So we have very wide reach as far as it comes to the services that we provide. Now,
Specifically, we represent Brinks Global Services. Brinks Global Services is a overlay onto the Brinks company that provides high-value transportation, logistics, and storage services for customers globally. So we act as an overlay within that Brinks system, but specifically targeting and looking at the high-value services that we can offer to customers. So as BGS, we operate in 122 countries where we provide services for transportation of high-value items, and we have a staff of approximately 4,000 across the globe. So specifically, what we serve is, as I mentioned, high-value items. We work with a wide variety of industries for the valuables that they want to transport and those valuables that they hold within secure storage. This is an example of some of the industries that we service. We service precious metals refineries, mining companies. We work very extensively with diamond and jewelry, as well as manufacturers or pharmaceutical companies that might be transporting high-value items. We transport credit cards, credit card holograms and strips, anything that has that need for the extra security and the extra value in what's being transported is where we get involved and where customers come to us. So within Brinks Global Services, we are also, as I'm taking this down sort of from a macro to a micro view of what we do, we're the commodities group. And specifically, we look at high-value commodities. For myself, Richard, and Scott, that is very specifically precious metals. That's the area that we deal in, and that's the products that we deal with. So gold, silver, platinum, and palladium are the primary products that we work with within our area of Brinks. There are many other areas in which we're involved as a company, but for us, we have very much a focus just on the precious metals industry, whether that's coming from the mine site, coming from the refineries, or dealing with institutional or private investor metals. So here in the US as Brinks, we operate multiple facilities for the storage of precious metals. From this map here, you can see that we operate across the country, and we strategically located ourselves at key places where either the markets or individuals have need for precious metal storage. We operate in New York very heavily for the institutional markets and the COMEX markets. And then we operate here in Salt Lake, both for the mining markets, but as well, a lot of the private individual and private retail markets. Very extensively with IRAs, individual tax advantage retirement holdings are typically held more in Salt Lake when it comes to our facilities. And we also operate in Los Angeles, Dallas, and Miami, often for high net worth services or other strategic import-export markets where metals are moving through the ports of Los Angeles, Miami, New York, coming in and out of the US, and we provide storage as well as logistics solutions for those metals. So I'll turn it over to Richard to talk a little bit about the vaulting in particular.
Yeah, thanks very much, Scott. So, Josh, sorry, Scott's that side. So thanks very much. As Josh mentioned, the three of us are the sort of precious metals experts for BGS. So I've been in the precious metals industry for 27 years now. Originally in Africa, where I spent my time in the mining business. I moved to the UK and spent a lot of time in the London bullion market, and have been in the US for the last 6 years. So on vaulting specifically, as Josh said, primarily again in Salt Lake City, a lot of my IRA business, some financial institutions, and a lot of refinery work that we do. Yeah, we can over here. Right, so in terms of how we operate and some of our security infrastructure, I hope you all understand there's only so much we can share about how we secure our facilities. And a lot of it is sort of trade secret and as what has built Brinks, over the last 165 years. But just to sort of share a little bit on the security side, obviously we have our active security, which is around monitoring centers. We have a security operational center that monitors all of our facilities around the globe. They're at one location, not in Utah, that control all access, as well as all visitors, entry, access control, and the likes. All of our staff are obviously trained in what they do. We have a minimum number of firearms that we are required to have at all of our facilities at one time. And then sort of passively, which is really around physical security infrastructure. We have, I guess, what we can call a layered approach. 100 years ago, a lot of gold vaults were underground. A lot of the banks, JP Morgans and the likes, were all, 5 stories underground. Obviously, nowadays it's very cost prohibitive, for companies to do that. So there's more use of technology and layers to actually mitigate this external threat. So we have very much of a layered approach, very much around access control, where you have to go through multiple layers to actually get to the vaults where all the inventory will be held. Again, with controlled access. And then, of course, we follow the Brinks, minimum security standards, which has been built up over a very long period of time, of 165 years. And then obviously lastly, all of the liability that we assume for our customers is obviously all protected by an all-risk insurance policy, which is 3 Lloyd's of London. I can't reveal too much information about that insurance policy, but it's pretty easy to find out what the maximum insurable liability we can insure. And our facility in Salt Lake City is at that maximum that we actually have a policy. Then, of course, we have defined liability limits per location, which is managed and monitored on a daily basis. So we report at the end of every single day exactly what we have in all of our facilities around the world. That's reported to me, and it's also reported to my head office in London, who kind of govern all of that. Any questions? Right, then sort of more operational around process and how we actually manage our inventory in all of our facilities. So without going into, again, too much detail, at the end of every day, we balance all of our inventory within our vaults. So that we can make sure that all the activity that's happened during the course of the day is correct, and that what we're supposed to have left is actually left in the vaults at the end of every day. We have a regular cycle count program, which requires us to physically count all of our inventory that we have in our facility. And then we have our annual full audits that we do both internally as well as independently through non-operational functions such as us. We provide daily inventory reports to all of our customers, so everybody has the visibility on what we're currently holding for them, and obviously then that updates daily as and when gold price changes. So we obviously keep track of the liability of that. In terms of when the gold comes in, everything is always under dual verification, so not one single person can actually do something from end to end. Very, very strict segregation of duty as well, where systematically one team does, which does not have access to the physical, and then we have a physical team that actually do the handling, and then we may want to put that for the verification as well. We record all serial numbers on the bars or bar numbers. If it's a 400 ounce bar or a kilo bar or a 100 ounce bar, that all has serial numbers on. When that comes into our facility, that's all verified. The brand is verified, the fineness is verified before it comes in, and that is all captured in our inventory management system as well. So we have full visibility of absolutely everything that is in a specific location for a specific customer. And then a new sort of area that we have started working on now is also verification of the actual metal that we are receiving. So we recently purchased quite a lot of gold verifiers. So all gold coming into our facility as part of our inbound process, on top of verifying the brand, the bar number, the fineness and the weight of the product, we'll actually confirm that it is actually gold or silver or platinum or palladium. I think that was it.
Great, thank you. Questions for Brinks?
Can I ask you a question? So there's your verification procedures, like what kind of processes are you using to verify the precious metals? So it's just sort of a quick test, or?
Yeah, it's just a quick test. So it's not entirely foolproof, but for the types of commodities that we hold, we believe it's pretty good.
So you're not doing an extensive test to verify?
No, we're not as it's not a full assay. Sure. It's not XRF. We make something slightly different. But we think we get enough penetration in the bar to verify it's on this record.
Thank you. And as with everything, it's multifaceted. So a lot of the product that we bring in is coming directly from known refineries. It's being transported by our trucks from those refineries to our facility. And the same with a lot of the bullion products that are coming from national mints. Those are coming directly from, say, the US Mint in a sealed box with US Mint seals on. So there are a certain number of products that we also just take in as that product said to be, because it is coming from a known source that's been verified either through LBMA process or through a national mint. So there is quite a bit of product that has that provenance to it already.
Yeah, so that'll be brought in on what we call the sector basis.
You, yeah, a couple of quick fire questions. Do you provide specifically any storage services for US states, any of the states across the US?
As
Like
part
state of
of
Utah?
our transportation service, I'm going to say we do for the US Mint. So we do a lot of
The
business
US
with the
Mint,
US
okay.
Mint. We collect and deliver to a large number of government entities on behalf of other customers. So we pick up Federal Reserve cash every single day for export, for domestic distribution. We have a contract with the Government Passport Office for the kind of domestic install service.
Okay. Liquidity. Do you provide any liquidity services if someone wanted to liquidate any of their private, stored precious metals, or do they work with a liquidity provider of their own and coordinate with you, or what do they do? How do they get the gold out?
So we don't provide liquidity directly.
Yeah.
Because we store for such a large variety of customers, there are a number of our customers that are also liquidity providers, and usually customers will work with them to provide that liquidity. So we provide the transfer internally when we receive orders to make that transaction, and then that's done through one of those other parties that has made an arrangement with them for the.
So when was the last time you had a robbery attempt? No one's even tried.
So again, talking specifically precious metal storage operations
Precious metals, yeah.
within BGS and zero.
Okay. Thank you.
A couple of online questions.
Okay, just quickly, before we go there, Representative Ivory.
Yeah, so a few years ago, there was the Perk Mint scandal. And they found diluted metal content. How does something like that happen relative to your operations? Do you limit the types of assets you'll receive to certain sources? And if so, how do you ferret out something like what happened there? That was quite a
So I think that was specifically for the Chinese market, if I recall right. So as part of our business, we kind of distance ourselves from exactly what is actually in the bar. We're not gold experts, right? We're experts in storing it and transporting it and securing it. We very much receive goods on a declaration by the customer. We will bring those in and we will deliver the exact same goods out we need to.
So chain of custody, that's
our,
all
correct.
separately.
So our chain of custody, if it's a sealed package, our chain of custody will be the seal number. So again, on this, we'll have two gold bars on a set to contain basis with seal number 123. We deliver that same container on a set to contain basis with the same seal number. That's our chain of custody. On the storage side, we are handling naked bars. That's where the bar number comes into account. So the brand and bar number, that's why we record that. And at the end, 5 years later or 7 years later, you will receive the same bar back with the same bar number.
And then just follow up, what's in a crisis situation, EMP, electricity's out, whatever that may be, what would a process be like to liquidate or access if we don't have electricity, we've got some other crisis going on? How do things like that work, especially when we're looking at this as a rainy day investment initially, right?
Yeah, so obviously we have business continuity plans in place across all of our facilities. We have generators on site as well, so we continue to operate.
Able to keep.
In terms of a business continuity plan to move the amount of metal that we have in our facility, it's going to take longer to do that before the issue's over.
Sophia, online.
Thank you. I was wondering, how do you approach charging for your services? Is it based on a rate or based on volume, or how do you go about for charging for your services?
Sure. So our charges are based off of a couple of different things. The first aspect is off of the liability that we're holding in storage, because we are insuring against that. So we determine it based on the value of the product that's being stored as a percentage of the liability. There are also a number of fees that may be assessed depending on the customer type. If it has to do with a lot of transactions, some of our smaller customers or smaller, I should say smaller products may be part of pick and pack operations where we're packaging and shipping out to customers. And so there are some various transaction types that may be assessed direct fees, but as far as the storage itself, it is an assessment against the valuation.
Thank you.
And Joe online.
Hi, thanks, and I know the guys from Brinks, so great to see you. Couple of things. First, on the Perth Mint example, I think that's a really interesting example, slightly different as a mint and a refiner and state-supported entity, but happy to unpack that a little bit more at another time. There was not only one issue around China and the quality of the bars, I think there are two other issues that they were facing in terms of just actions that put them in a bit of a very uncomfortable situation. But I guess for the benefit of this group, Franks, maybe you gentlemen could talk a little bit about a client's ability to come in and inspect their gold. As part of some of the processes we use with funds that we manage, we go in and do a regular inspection, partially counting and then fully counting our gold. Can you talk a little bit about access to the gold for inspection and verification and validation as part of an audit process?
Yeah, we do welcome third-party audits from our customers. Obviously, the entity that we are contractually responsible to, provided they authorize, that audit, that visit, and we have all the IDs beforehand. Most of the third-party audit firms used are obviously well known to us. All of the banks and financial institutions and larger customers that we store for, they all do the exact same thing. So as long as we have that information to come and audit, we would obviously need to be present ourselves when they're actually.
And to add on to that a little bit, my background is in the precious metals industry. I've been in precious metals for over 20 years. Prior to joining Brinks, most of my career was spent at what are called TIC companies, which is testing, inspection, and certification. So we operated assay laboratories that tested precious metals, had inspectors that would go into precious metals refineries. And one of the divisions that we had was our auditing division. So I worked for many years as an auditor going into the Brinks facilities as a third party. And so I'm very familiar that there are very robust procedures from both sides, both from the independent side working for customers, as well as from the Brinks side, where we provide access to customers to come in and review the materials, ensure that based on the inventory list and the holdings that you have by serial number, if it's a serial number tracked item, that those are properly stored and allocated and easily identifiable and located on your behalf.
And I think for the benefit of the group, when we talk in terms of allocated gold, we're meaning segregated and held on behalf of a client in a separate untouchable account.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Can
Sophia,
I just ask? Yeah, just one more question. And are there competitors out there with what you do? Are there other groups that do what you do, or do you guys kind of own the market share for storage?
So certainly, as with just about any industry, there are competitors in the market. Every competitor is positioned differently depending on the markets that they wish to address. And so there are other competitors out there, both nationally and globally.
Thank you.
And I think like with Loomis, they do not have a facility here as far as I know, but
They don't have precious metal storage.
no, they don't have precious metal storage. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, there are other firms. You'll see Loomis trucks occasionally that look like big armored trucks, right?
So similar to Brinks, that'll be their sort of cash and transit division.
Yeah.
Sort of doing cash processing.
But they're not storing physical. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay.
Marcus,
yeah.
So just mechanics, right? So we've authorized the investment into a certain amount of precious metals in the rainy day fund, just mechanically, right? So we make a decision on where to acquire whatever that metal might be. How does that work? So we work through a refinery or a vendor or something, and then we just put them in connection with you and you take care of transportation, storage, just kind of walk me through the mechanics if you would.
It's kind of however you guys want to source the bolus, right? We can provide the transportation from wherever in the world you want to procure the bolus from, and bring it into our facility.
Yeah,
So, and if we can introduce you to a variety of, refineries, bullion banks, that you could.
And then you may know or even know if you've got precious metal available within your network already. Is that a thing, or it just doesn't matter?
So depending on the customer that you procure the gold from, if they already have a large holding with us, it could make sense that they just tell us transfer this inventory to Utah State.
yeah. Now, there's a high likelihood that all of that inventory wouldn't be located, in one location. Whoever that party is, they may have to come to us and say, these are the locations that we would be transferring it from. Especially when you're talking about things like kilo bars. There's a lot of kilo bars resident in the New York area, specifically for the COMEX market. Whereas a lot of the other storage locations are more heavily invested in bullion coins and small bars. So there would be a period of probably accumulating and transporting it in order to fulfill that order.
But then kind of going back to Hugh's question, as far as liquidity, there isn't necessarily a need to load bars in a red wagon and cart it off somewhere. I mean, you have your entries and you get inventory at various places around the world. And if it was to be liquidated, you don't have to necessarily move that specific amount of gold, I would assume, right? You just credit wherever the buyer may be.
Yeah, as long as that liquidity partner has accounts with us,
in the network.
we would move it into their account based on the orders that we receive.
Yeah, it's a pretty big market globally.
Yes. But I think it's important to understand, I like your question, is that Brinks isn't becoming our liquidity provider, right? We're not, we can't go in and say, hey, be our broker. And,
No.
We have a buyer, we want to sell, you can transport.
Yeah, correct. Transport, store, and transfer between.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So just one other thing I should have mentioned as well, just a quick one, the question about other government, contracts. So just something else we've done a lot of central bank movements over the years. One of which was a European central bank where we repatriated 100 tons of their gold.
Great.
We are used to large volumes of gold.
Yeah, thank you. Great, and to the extent that there are further questions that you think of as we get to the end of the meeting, we may be able to circle back as we get into a discussion among the work group. But let's move now to the precious metal currency platforms portion of our agenda. And for that, we've got a couple of presentations. One, Jason Cousins, who is here from London with Glint Pay. And then he'll be followed by a presentation by Mark Hilton of Alpine Gold Exchange. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you. Okay, so let me give me a second. Put up my presentation.
There we go.
Okay, so Glint, just a little bit about Glint. We are the fastest growing fintech company in the UK, the 5th fastest growing tech company in the UK. We have a US company here as well, Glint Pay Inc., which is servicing our biggest market, the USA. And we're backed by some wonderful investors, Sprott, which is one of the biggest asset managers in North America focused on gold, and Sibanye-Stillwater, which is one of the biggest producers of gold in the world on the New York Stock Exchange. There are lots of different ways to buy gold, of course. You can use online exchanges and stable coins to be able to buy gold. The rates in which you can buy that gold vary. The types of gold that you can buy are varied as well. You can get unallocated gold, which is gold which which the custodian can actually lend out and put at risk. There's also allocated gold where they're not supposed to do that, and it can't be lent out. And the way to buy it varies in cost from 0.1% to 1% generally. There are, of course, gold options and futures, which is a way of buying and selling gold, which is favored by the investment markets, effectively often called the paper gold market. ETFs are an innovation that happened a couple of decades ago. I think actually the World Gold Council, Joseph, were the innovators in that some time ago. They're kind of mutual funds which allow you to buy shares in those which are backed by gold. And of course, there are physical gold bars and coins, which and gold backs, which we'll be hearing about in a minute, which are very beautiful ways of owning gold. Therefore, physical custody, for physical ownership of being able to have those on you. The cost for those can vary considerably, from 5% up to even 300% when buying those. Those offer, they can be private gold storage, or they can be put in safety deposit boxes. And Glint is a way to be able to buy and sell gold online through the Glint app at a very efficient pricing. But it's the first platform in the world to enable gold to be used in payment, electronic payments in real time at the point of sale. There's no need to pre-sell your gold. There are a number of companies out there that have cards attached to their online exchanges, but you have to sell your gold first, and the proceeds are then transferred to another online card account. That's very different to Glint. Glint is the first company to allow real-time use spending of gold anywhere in the world where MasterCard's accepted. Just touching about the online exchanges, really. Gold bullion exchanges, Bullion Vault, for instance, was one of the first online gold bullion exchanges to be set up. I do believe the World Gold Council is also an investor in that business. It's allocated gold, and you can buy a fraction of a solid gold bar that is owned by you. There are gold-based stable coins. These are ways in which to expose yourself to gold. Sometimes it's allocated, sometimes it's not. You're buying a token which is backed by gold. And of course, there are government gold-based stable coins as well that have been set up. The Royal Mint have DigiGold, and the Royal Canadian Mint have Vault Chain, I think it's called. And companies like Kitco and Sprott resell that product. But Glint, as I said, is the first in the world to enable it as money. I just want to demonstrate it quickly. So I'm just going to stop my share of this account and bring up actually my app. So you can see here, this is actually our UK version of our app, slightly different to our US version. We've got a multi-currency based platform. In fact, Glint is actually currency agnostic. We could make anything a currency that we can get a price on, but we choose not to. I don't think coffee beans would be a very good currency. So we stick with gold as our primary proposition. You can, of course, fund your account. For instance, I can fund my US dollar account with an ACH transfer or debit or credit card payment. Or a wire transfer. I could buy gold very easily. Let's just do that. And it's very easy to do in the app. So I can go into here. And, Glint believes in a world where everyone has an equal opportunity to prosper. We set this up because, we believe the existing monetary system is very unfair. Those closest to the money supply benefit disproportionately from those further away from that, governments being the main beneficiaries of that, and those further away from the money supply struggle. They always feel that they're swimming against the tide. So we've built the system to allow you, for instance, to only buy as little as 1 cent's worth of gold. We think that's really important. So I'm just going to demonstrate it by buying 1 cent of gold. Of course, you could buy $1 million on here as well, but let's just confirm that there. I've done it that quick. I've bought 1 cent's worth of gold, or 0.0001 gram of a gold bar that sat in the vault in a Brinks vault actually, and insured by Lloyd's of London. I'll go on in a minute to explain how that happens, but you can see here how easy it is to buy gold. But also we have the Glint MasterCard, and this is an innovation we've developed. We spent a lot of money and time building the platform and the technology to be able to do this. We issue these cards in the UK through our banking partner here in the US, Sutton Bank. We issue the cards in the US, and this card is accepted anywhere in the world where MasterCard's accepted. I can link that card to any of my wallets. If I want to, I can just spend US dollars if I want. I think it's important that we offer people choice all the time. This is not supposed to be a complete replacement for everything. There is risk with gold because although confidence in the dollar goes up and down and generally down, which means that the price of gold goes up and down and generally up, there is times when the gold price is going down. So we offer that choice. And by the way, that's where the gold is. It's stored currently in the Brinks vault in Switzerland under the airport there. But we are already working with Brinks on the idea of getting it open in the Utah vault already here in the US, give people a bit of choice about where it's vaulted. We're vault agnostic. We're card agnostic. This could be Visa as well. But I can link my card to my gold wallet, which it is already. And you can go in here and see some of my transactions. On the way here, it cost me 0.4168 grams of gold to get here in an Uber. I downloaded some data that I wanted to see last night, and it cost me 0.2157 grams of gold. Of course, the merchant wanted $16. And my guilty secret is gelato. You've got a wonderful gelato shop in Salt Lake City called Dolcetti, and ice cream for three is 0.2569 grams of gold. Of course, they had no idea, except for the fact that I told them I was paying with gold, that they're getting gold. They wanted $19.02. This is anywhere in the world where gold's accepted. There's Heathrow before I flew out here, picking up some water or something for 0.128 grams of gold. And I think my Wi-Fi at 35,000 feet in the air. So we have made gold money, electronic payments everywhere. I can also make a peer-to-peer payment. That is from my account to somebody else. I'll send it to Andrew, I can send a message with that. I can send him, I'm a bit tight. I'm sending quite a small amount of gold there, just 0.01 grams of gold. Greetings from Utah. And I can click that and press go. That gold immediately has gone, after a quick check with my visual identity, it's gone from me to Andrew in just a millisecond. So I think that's everything. Oh no, there are a few other things, of course, in here that's important. I think it's important to recognize it at the moment in the US. Gold has a federal tax on it, a capital gains tax. You can download your statements and you can download spreadsheets of those and work that out. But we've also partnered with KPMG, one of the biggest funds, consultancies in the world, so that you can actually ask them to calculate your capital gains tax for you. Anonymous data is sent to them. They generate the report and send that back to you.
Hey, Jason, while you're on that, we were trying to figure this out the other day. That's got to be tremendous to figure out the cap gain. Is it like a first in, first out? Then last, I mean,
so Glint actually attempted to try and build this ourselves and look at all those issues about first in, first out. It's actually exceptionally complicated, and we decided to team up with the world's greatest experts in this.
They just apply whatever
they built a system
regs and standards are.
Yeah. So I'm just going to stop that and go back to my presentation that I was showing before. So Glint is both independent of the existing financial system because I can buy gold, which is an independent currency, not under the domain of anyone. It's created when two neutron stars collide. It's also a payment system that just relies on the internet to be able to send value from one to another, but it's also totally integrated with it, partnered with MasterCard as well. We're also regulated by the UK's Financial Conduct Authority, and we sit under the regulatory framework here in the USA, working with Sutton Bank's license. So I just want to stress this as well, is that, it's physical gold. And that, you can own physical gold and take personal custody of this, or you can have it vaulted and have electronic access to it. And with Glint, also with the MasterCard. Of course, personal custody and having gold on you is something I believe everybody should have. We encourage it all the time. Every time I'm online, I'm always saying to people, have some gold on you. It offers total privacy and anonymity. It's definitely allocated and segregated. There's no counterparty risk because you're not trusting anybody else to hold your gold. And it has a wonderful collectability and often aesthetic appeal. It's beautiful. There's no technological dependence, and it has great cultural and traditional significance. Of course, like everything, there are challenges with that too. There are often high transaction premiums and fees with the gold. There are security concerns. How are you going to store this and protect it from theft? There, of course, are liquidity challenges. What do I do with my gold? How do I liquidate that if I need to be able to use it as money? And it's very limited as money generally. With vaulted, with electronic access, certainly with Glint, we've enabled it as money, so maybe to manage it, spend it anytime, anywhere in the world where through the app and MasterCard, it is allocated. So that is yours. Legally, it is yours. And so you do have physical ownership, you just don't have physical custody. And we offer secure storage with our partners at Brinks. They're very low transaction fees. There's no premium on it. We're using the scalability of technology to be able to maintain those low fees. In fact, even when you'll see in a second, when you're spending gold, there is no fee at all. You can instantly convert this to fiat currency. There's very high levels of privacy and anonymity, but obviously you're trusting us with your custodian of your data. And you can ask for physical delivery and redemption. We do offer the ability to have your gold sent to you. And in fact, last time I was in Utah as well, I had some great talks with the Goldbacks team. We'd love to be able to allow people to be able to have their gold at Glint redeemed in Goldbacks. There's minimal counterparty risk. Obviously, you're trusting us with this, but your gold is at all times free from any predators. So should Glint fall into liquidation, but there's no collectability, there's no aesthetic appeal. You can't sit there and look at your beautiful gold. It's stuck in a vault, and there is a technological dependence. You are reliant on the app and the MasterCard. But of course, the gold is in the vault. So if you're talking, Ken, about rainy day situation, ultimately, the gold exists in the vaults. We have offline records. And ultimately, even checkbooks to be issued and even gold coined if that was needed to be in the future. But how does it work? Well, you have to register. You have to go through a KYC process. We comply with all federal and state laws on that. You can buy, as I said, the gold. Gold is it's the International London Bullion Market Association standard. Your funds are held and segregated and safeguarded. No, well, actually FDIC insured accounts at our partner bank. We can't do the card side of this business without those accounts. When you're buying gold, you're either buying gold off another customer who is selling at the same time, or it's offset to our liquidity provider, which we use, a company called StoneX, one of the biggest liquidity providers in the world, but we are liquidity provider agnostic. The gold is audited on a monthly basis by a company called Bureau Veritas. They're one of the oldest and most established metals auditors in the world. And as I said, it's vaulted and insured by Lloyd's of London. How does this payment system work? Well, when you swipe this card, when I swiped it with the gelato shop, a authorization request went from the merchant and it went through what they call their acquiring bank. Different people have different systems. And that request then was routed through to MasterCard. And because Glint is a principal member of MasterCard, that comes to us. We're fully integrated with the MasterCard system. At that point, Glint checks how much gold does Jason have, and what's the price of gold in that millisecond. And so we work out what your purchasing power is at that time. And if there's enough there, we authorize the transaction. We have to do this within 200 milliseconds. That includes the time it takes for that authorization request to come to us and go back to us. So we have to have a system that's very, very fast, very low latency. And then we sell just enough gold into the currency of the merchant, and those funds make their way to the merchant through the normal MasterCard process. I think that after listening to everything that the state, as I understand it, wants to achieve, I think that actually ultimately establishing a state level silo will give the ultimate independence to the state, creating a secure and autonomous financial system with interoperability still with other systems that might be created in other states around the country. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that the team ultimately should be here in Utah. I'm talking about the support team, the ops team, compliance, all should be located in the state. The software should be on servers, I believe, in the state ultimately. The ledger should be as well, including all the backups. And wherever possible, I believe that we should work on building a gold-based circular economy and being able to source the gold locally. That, of course, can be done. Already, you have your aerospace industry, your gold jewelry industry, sending your gold to be refined, actually in the refinery here, not far from the biggest vault. And there's no reason why, I think in time, a lot of the gold that customers want to buy could come from within the circular economy here in Utah. And of course, it could be vaulted in the vault, which is only 15 minutes drive from where we're talking here, and partnered with a local bank, I believe, is the ultimate solution for Utah. One of your banks located here could be the card issuer and the FDIC insured bank account provider. That would be my recommendation. And of course, you know, the Utah gold currency or whatever it ends up being called could be offered to third-party standalone white label integrated apps, especially with banks. I think that it's a wonderful opportunity for the banks to get involved in this. Using API technology can be integrated with those banks, and it offers them a differentiator, a proposition for them to be able to attract new clients. It reduces customer attrition. A lot of customers have been leaving banks last year. Regional banks saw a net outflow of customers to some of the big five. JP Morgan saw their biggest profits of all time last year after the banking crisis. Why not have an alternative solution that people can use to satisfy their thirst for security and reliability inside their own app? And of course, generate additional revenue and opportunities for cross-selling, including collateralized gold loans. As I said, the Glint platform, for instance, if it was to be used, could be integrated, could use with our API to many banks. How much does all this cost? Well, we use, again, leveraging scalable technology to be able to make it very efficient. It's free to be able to receive payments in gold. By the way, we haven't switched this on in the US at the moment for various reasons, but we, would be switched on should Utah pass this legislation. That's currently live in other countries. Buying and selling gold is only 0.5% above the wholesale market rate, and we charge at the moment 0.02% for the monthly gold storage insurance. It's free when you use your Glint MasterCard. Free. You're not actually even selling the gold. It doesn't come at a cost at all. We do that because we get 1% from the merchant, and the card costs a few dollars. And if you want to top up your account, it's free with an ACH. It does cost 3% if you want to use your debit or credit card, and it's a low $25 if you want to do a wire transfer. $1.50 for your ATM withdrawals. Free if you want to do bank withdrawals of the funds that you have in your account. And 0.5% if you do foreign currency exchanges, either with the card or in other ways, but that's still 6 times cheaper than the banks. We've just recently launched, we actually haven't quite launched it yet, but it's in beta at the moment, a solid gold debit card. And we've launched a repeat gold buy process and the capital gains tax report, which I just demonstrated earlier on. We take KYC and AML and the onboarding process very, very seriously. The state and the bank would have the right of audit. The bank that we currently work has the right of audit. Our partner has that. And our systems, as I said, adhere to the federal and state laws. We've developed a very extensive anti-financial crime framework. And we have our KYC and onboarding processes, which are very efficient. 80% of our customers are onboarded automatically, but there is ongoing compliance and ongoing audit. But this is more than a technological play. As anybody involved in payments and banking will know, we have to have operational processes and daily and periodic activities that ensure smooth transactions and regulatory compliance. And this involved daily payment-related activities, such as overseeing the settlement and reconciliation of card acquiring, or the pending gold sales, or withdrawals, and account reconciliation. We have weekly and monthly payments reconciliations with MasterCard and with our partner banks as well. And of course, from a compliance perspective, we're doing daily transaction monitoring. We're doing reporting of suspicious activities, and where required by the laws, supporting law enforcement, and of course, managing enhanced due diligence and customer due diligence. We're a real business, though. It's not just a startup. We've done over $500 million worth of transactions. We have $170 million worth of gold on our platform currently, and our clients have done over 1 million card transactions to date. Some of you might be wondering, well, if a platform like Glint is up and running already and allowing gold transactions, then why on earth does the state need to get involved? Well, it's extremely important that the state gets involved to protect the rights of citizens, to pave the way for fair and practical use of this type of money. The state needs to protect the constitutional rights of its residents to be able to use gold and silver as money, because that could be taken away if it was just Glint offering it. Who are we? We're just a company. The federal laws could be changed, for instance, to stop us doing this. But if a state authorizes this, then of course that would not be possible. And it gives legal assurance and protection and clarity for people conducting using gold and silver as money. This also, of course, would bring gains, benefits around tax. To state level, removes taxes, of course. It makes it the daily use of gold and silver as money practical and fair. And at the federal level, advocating for the IRS to remove the current collectibles tax on capital gains tax that it gives on capital gains from transactional gold, would as it is now, would be recognized as authorized legal tender and transactional currency, would be a game changer. So, of course, it also increases adoption and trust, and it would be my expectation that the state would also be involved in the audits around the customers' gold that are in the vaults at Brinks. But I think that, just to nearly finish off here, it's not just the easy way to buy and sell gold. I think there's the opportunity. It's not even the opportunity to allow citizens to be able to protect themselves against the destructive effects of inflation and systemic risk within the system. What you have the opportunity here is to be the catalyst for the construction of a gold-based financial services ecosystem, one that integrates throughout all areas of society, from wealth management platforms, cryptocurrency exchanges, e-commerce systems, banks, payment systems, retirement systems. The opportunity is huge. There's $165 billion worth of gold traded every day, a lot of it on the COMEX and on the gold ETFs across the US. A lot of that would flow into the system here in Utah, would be my expectation, and it could generate huge amounts of business for the state. So yeah, I think you guys have come up with a great idea, and long may it not fade.
Thank you, Jason. And before we get to questions, I'm going to turn over to Mark Hilton from Alpine Gold Exchange and talk about some of the things that they have in their world.
Great, thank you very much. This up. So Larry's going to bring around some hard copies of this for you. Let's see. Let me know if you're seeing that. I think we've started.
Thank you.
All right. We appreciate the chance. We met with a number of you down there in Alpine. Appreciate the chance to go into a little more structured discussion around this and how we see what the state's doing. Again, I'm the president there at Alpine Gold Exchange. UPMA is our primary network client. It's United Precious Metals Association. And so the majority of what we do is in support of that entity. We were pleased when we looked at the objectives of this committee. We just kind of looked word by word what's in the bill. and align that with our United Precious Metals Association bylaws that we put in place about 12 years ago, and they line up almost directly. Same kind of focus on different stakeholders with the ability to promote standards around precious metals. So we think that we're on good footing here. We've been doing this for 12 years and excited to share some of the learnings that we've had along the way. We thought a good topic initially was, and this is maybe something you might see a little bit different from us and other approaches, is our sort of rabid focus on specie legal tender, and why do we just focus on legal tender as the basis for what we do in precious metals? There's a number of reasons here. There's, it starts with the U.S. Constitution, of course, where we should focus that Congress has the power to coin money, and that the states should not coin money, but can recognize gold and silver as legal tender, and only gold and silver in the payment of debts. So the federal government took that statement in the Constitution, and for the last 200 plus years, except for a period of 20 years, they've been minting specie legal tender as legal tender for payment of debts. And they're doing that today, of course. And then a number of states have come along to identify specie legal tender as legal tender in the state. So Utah was the first in 100 years. I think Colorado was on the books before that, but there's been a number of states that have since followed that. So, there's definitely a push towards this idea of specie legal tender. We talked about capital gains recently. If you're actually spending gold, not converting it back to paper, that's considered a barter transaction. And there's a complicated process to figure out, what did you buy that thing for, that piece of property? What did you get for it? Converting it, it's quite messy. If you're actually spending specie legal tender or legal tender of any form, there is no capital gains. So a lot of what we try to do is get folks to acquire precious metals in a legal tender form and spend it that way without converting it. Now, of course, there are cases where you have to convert that back, and we have solutions for that. But kind of the first step is, can you spend it as gold or silver or gold backs, which is sort of tethered to gold. Further, this is something that really keeps us up at night, is there are criminal penalties of trying to pass off gold and silver products as money, as legal tender. And there's been cases where people have been put in jail for this. And so we take this very seriously, and we think that it's, having redeemability, whether it's digital or physical, of course, is a bulwark of liberty, to have a privacy that comes with physical currency. So these are the reasons that we focus on legal tender exclusively. We certainly allow people to go in and out of their positions in precious metals, but we like to keep them in and spend it that way as much as we can. So that's kind of a background. Now, many of you may be familiar with what's come to be known as Reagan's Golden Rule. So this was actually the Treasury at the time. The treasurer was Donald Reagan, and he told one of the board members of UPMA that the reason for this rule, the reason this was put in place, was to provide a path back to the gold standard if the country decided they want to go that direction. So the question is, how have we been doing in this? The idea being the Secretary of the Treasury was supposed to maintain the equal purchasing power of the different forms of legal tender, gold, silver, paper. This next chart shows not so well. The intent was, even in 1985, was trying to stem the tide of that, the inflation and the impact on the price of gold. Hasn't taken off. But so we want to look at areas we call friction. And Jason identified some of these. These are things that we call, that really kind of stand in the way of the free flow of money in a modern economy. Of course, you need basic insurance and security, but these are other things that really you know, especially when you're now talking about using gold and silver as money, but also just in the fiat world. Confidentiality, transaction finality, those kinds of things. Now, we can't go through every one of these and won't attempt to in the time that we're allocated. Let me hit on a few of them that, and all of these basically have informed our decisions on the platforms and solutions that we've offered to our members. So let's look at that first one. I think it was Ron Paul that coined the term inflation tax in a different way to talk about capital gains for certain types of capital assets. You take a house, you're living in a house for 50 years, the value of the house or what it's providing to you really doesn't change during that period of time. Yet, because of the debasement of the currency that it's measured in, there's a tax that results if you try to sell that back into fiat. So that is what's referred to as an inflation tax, and we think is something that's not, it's not fair. Now, if you invest in the stock market and you're doing things and you're taking risks on certain investments and you see your value go up, then that's a capital gain. It totally makes sense to tax on that. So this is something that creates friction for folks in terms of how they behave with their money. So there's Dr. Adam Trexler. You may want to talk to him. You know, he's got a PhD in monetary science from where is it? Exeter College in England, I believe. He's an American fellow, but he spent some time over there. And he put together a team of consultants from industry and business to help really look at a new way to think about money. And developed a company that we then ended up partnering with. He developed something called the Interim and has the technology and the patents to develop such a product. The Goldback is a result of that initiative, mixing folks from our group where we met Ken at a trade show, really, Freedom Fest. And that was the beginning of a partnership that created the Goldback. So the Goldback here, and we picked the 25 here to show, and it's kind of hard to see this, but this one is celebrating women's suffrage, where in Utah was the second state in the union to offer voting rights to women. And so this is a big focus, and a lot of the Goldbacks kind of have history of the various states. Looking closer here, it says specie legal tender instrument. So it's not specie legal tender in the true sense of what I just discussed, but what it means is at the bottom there, it says this is exchangeable by Goldback Inc. in US gold coin to the bearer on demand. So that's the method of tethering this to legal tender so that it's not considered a barter transaction. Each of these has a serial number, which will be important as we talk about counterfeiting here in a moment. And there's patented technology here that has been deployed from Adam Trexler and his team. And then on the back here shows you everything you see there is actual gold. These are made through kind of atomizing gold targets and depositing a very thin layer of gold in a vacuum. So it's a vacuum deposition technology that has been developed and is owned by the manufacturer of Goldbacks. A lot of this came up in our discussion when some of you were down. You know, how safe is this? Can you counterfeit it? What's the risk? And so we've dug into this a little more in terms of documenting some of these things. You know, government grade designs, irreproducible backgrounds and spirals. So these are, I think we have a Goldback in your package. You can look at that. There's a little spiral design that is not something that can be, yeah, it's right here. It really can't be easily reproduced. It costs a lot of money to do this, you know, $1 million atomic deposition equipment. As I mentioned, patents. But, you know, you think about what's a store owner going to do, right? They're not going to necessarily be able to look at a design and determine whether it's unique or not. But the serial number is quite interesting where if you look on the front and the back, you can see the serial number in the gold itself, which is essentially the mirror image of what's printed on the polymer. That's not something you would get if you had a gold foil that you just sandwich between two pieces of polymer. So you can tell it's been developed in a particular way that it's hard to replicate. Now, we've not trained a lot of our merchants on these techniques because candidly, there are no counterfeits for gold backs. If anyone ever tried it, there's a lot of capability and things that we could do to train people how to tell. We talked about XRF and some of these other, Sigma megatonics or magnetics. That's probably the ones you guys use. It's a precious metal verifier. Because these are so thin, you can actually tell 100% the gold purity and the thickness on these products using those technologies. With a gold bar, you really can't get beyond just the skin. And even for some of the coins we've seen have been counterfeited. Somebody told us you can go buy a gold eagle on eBay for $8. It's probably spray painted with gold or has a very thin layer of gold on it, and it might pass a simple test. But people like to try to counterfeit this stuff. Obviously, the sourcing of that is very important, chain of custody and so forth. We get our gold and silver directly from the U.S. Mint authorized distributors. So in sealed boxes for the most part, a lot of you saw that. We're also continuing to add additional capability here with some of these things. And so one individual who was the director or who was formerly with the U.S. Secret Service counterfeit specialist said this is harder to counterfeit than the U.S. $100 bill, the gold back. So hasn't really happened yet, but we're prepared if it is. Mentioned some of those. Okay. Now the interchangeability is another friction point. Unfortunately, in the case of the gold coin minted by the U.S. Mint, if you take 10 1-ounce gold eagles, they cost more than 1 ounce or 10 1/10 gold. So it's still 1 ounce, both of them. They don't cost the same in the market because they're not thinking of that as a, is this me? So that's an issue with physical gold coins. In the case of gold back, we have complete interchangeability. 10 ones can be exchanged for a 10, etc. 15, any combination, those are exchangeable. All the merchants who deal in this, all the distributors have that same agreement to do that exchange. We talked about negotiable instruments, just to reiterate. You can have 1,000 ones or any combination and exchange that for a specie legal tender through gold backing. The traction has been really good on this. We've seen over $100 million worth of goldbacks sold or produced and distributed, we'll say, into the market since its introduction in 2019. Some discussion about the premiums that we see here. Premiums are approximately 100%, a little bit less. A lot of products that are manufactured in this space, you'll see have much higher premiums, up to 500–600%. But just the fact that we've seen such positive response to this, and the fact that that premium is recognized and valued with merchants, you're not losing that value. It's worth what it's sold for. So trying to compare it to the specific gold spot is not really relevant. It's what is the value, the persistent value that's seen. Merchant network. So as I said at the beginning, we try to get folks to actually use gold and silver and gold backs as what they are, money. We currently have recruited about 1,500 merchants across the nation. 700 of those are in Utah since we started here. So we're just getting started in some areas, but they'll accept physical gold backs or UPMA digital payments. We also offer a platform where you can transfer to a merchant. You can spend, anybody who is, if you're both UPMA members, there's a method to transfer for, this is a case of somebody paying for piano lessons, 10 gold backs. You can also put that into an escrow service. So you can actually dedicate the funds before the goods and services are received. So this provides security to the merchant who's providing good or service. And it goes into an escrow. Once received, then you release it. So you have the option of paying immediately or paying later. All of this is available on our app on our phone as well. You can, similar to Glenn, you can buy gold, you can exchange gold, you can go into a lease, you can check your balance, you can spend it in any one of these ways. As pointed out, obviously we can't always just live in a gold world. We'd love that, maybe someday, but the paper world, the Federal Reserve note is prevalent. And this issue of converting from gold back to paper is a friction point that we try to avoid. So we have this concept of gold ELOCs, gold equity line of credit, which we are offering now, where essentially we can loan based on someone's value, as opposed to liquidating and taking a capital gains tax immediately, as other solutions have offered. You can actually take a loan against that and then put it on a card. This one happens to be a Visa, but it could have been a MasterCard or whatever, debit card. And then you agree to pay that back, and you're paying either a small 2.5% APR with some exchange rate risk because you're paying it back in specie, or you can borrow against that in paper money and pay a higher return, but no exchange rate risk. So this is a way to get in and out of gold without actually having to liquidate it and bearing the capital gains taxes. We have a number of options for holding. A lot of you have heard this. We have our vault as well. We have a network of vaults, actually. We use Brinks. We have others. We have our own vault that we built. These are fully insured by Lloyd's of London, again, common theme here. And we charge a very competitive rate. That's per month. So, 24, I think that was basically the same thing that Jason just showed on theirs for gold. We do vault goldbacks for free, however. So that's an offering that Goldback Inc. is providing. We also have a unique ability to lease. So just like any kind of investment, you'd like to get a return. If you don't actually physically need that gold, you don't need to spend it. Why not get a return on it? So we do offer leases up to 2 to 3.5% paid in specie, and the account holder retains full ownership, including any equity appreciation during the length of the lease. They can dollar cost average into a position, so they're not taking a risk on a particular spike or big drop on one day. And we do offer a zero buy sell spread to redeem specie legal tender that's held in our vaults up to $10 million a month. Now, this concept of custody, we talked about, there's a vaulting company here. There's kind of legal custody versus physical custody. So we do offer a number of account types, and we're focused on trusts. So we have revocable, irrevocable, special needs trust, donor advised funds for charities, individual retirement accounts. And then we offer physical security features of class 2+ vault, fully insured and bonded. We have a number of security features, multi-factor authentication, personal identification, number of security, all the AML, KYC safeguards that are required. Plus, we have a fairly robust fulfillment process that or service that we can offer, not just to our own clients, but to other third parties who want to redeem. This idea of liquidating, and how do I, you brought up, how do I handle that, get something from one form to another? We can actually ship the gold, and we have that completely insured as well. And on the issue of tax, and I was interested to see Jason's approach to this, because it is a sticky one. Because we're using a trust, trusts fall into this category of qualified business unit, which is it's clearly defined in the federal statutes to be a clearly identified unit of trade or business. So that can be a trust. And there's a very clear method for calculating taxes based on an appropriate exchange rate, which is the average exchange rate for the entire year. This is how they suggest or require taxes to be calculated. So we think that this is a simple thing that could be adopted at the state level for any funds that are held in a trust. So coming back to our 14, you can't read this, okay, but that's why we gave you the hard copy, and we'll send a digital copy as well to all of you online. But basically, these are the 14 problems. We identified solutions. About half of those, now these currencies could be physical or digital, right? But about half of them, we have solutions for the digital counterparty risk. So the issues that were brought up earlier, and a lot of those come down to using Utah trust structures for specie legal tender, which is how we are organized, which provides confidentiality, protection against social engineering, systemic failure potential, et cetera. Some of these risks that we see. We also offer the leasing process. So you can kind of look through those, but the Goldback is ideal for these. Not surprising, since we optimally designed it to address those issues. The gold dollar is fantastic in most cases, but there's a few things there that we need to look at. The federal note kind of fails on those. And, you know, one concern that we have, if we adopt any sort of digital solution that is controlled outside of the state, then that puts the state at risk of federal oversight. And so we would, again, our recommendation is to focus on Utah-based specie legal tender or trusts. We put a few recommendations here just to summarize, to kind of put it all together. This first one, you could argue that the state has done most of this, although not currently accepting gold and silver directly, but recognizing that they are separate functional currencies, legal tender in their own right, not property other than money, which is how it's defined in the IRS statute 11001. And so we want to continue moving on that. We would recommend the fostering of the creation of both bank and non-bank trust companies. Right now in Utah, our understanding is primarily banks are the only financial institutions that can offer trusts. By offering non-bank trusts, then you can avoid some of the federal oversight and have kind of a mix. We would recommend, of course, you diversify your holdings between between different specie legal tender currencies and trusts, that you provide due process trust accounting confidentiality, so that the holders of those accounts don't feel that the state or any entity could come in immediately and just take their, without cause, could take the transactions and lose their privacy. But certainly with due process, it needs to be a way to access that information. A few mechanical things about setting the daily rates between the trusts, using the QBU, the tax as the method for handling taxes, and then allowing and encouraging banks and credit unions to underwrite these gold equity line of credit. This is really where we think that the banks and these trust companies could work closely together. And that's all we have.
Great.
There's a few notes on here if you want to read up on them, but I know there's a lot of content there that we threw at you. But we appreciate you giving us that chance.
Thank you, Mark. Questions from the committee on, I guess, any of the topics, really, from anything from Brinks to platforms to vaulting and goldbacks and all of these other. We've covered a lot of territory, but I do want to make sure that we have an opportunity to ask questions and kind of talk about what we've seen. I think one of the keys here is, as we're contemplating allowing transactions in the economy using precious metals, these are some of the ways that make it possible, and what kind of questions or concerns do committee members have, or suggestions or thoughts? Yep, question online.
Joseph.
Joseph.
Great. Thank you, everyone, Jason and Mark, as well as the team from Brinks for the presentations. Just a very quick question, Mark, for you on your presentation around valuing or the value of gold, or what people might see in the market in terms of, quote, the price of gold. And you talked a bit about that not being the only way or the proper way to look at the value of your instrument. Can you qualify that a little bit more, just to help us get an understanding? Because, this is something we've been looking at a lot, which we don't have a standard gold unit in the industry anywhere. So some people think, the ounce on Bloomberg or the number clicking array on my TV screen, it's challenging for people, and it creates a very, challenging environment for people to get comfortable to say, I can trust and buy. Yeah.
Yeah, great question. So the method that we use for pricing is, we have basically three products: gold, the gold dollar, we call it, in that unit, because it's, the 1 ounce gold eagle or gold buffalo says $50 on it, right? So we take that market price that is based off of LBMA every day, and we use that, but we also look at the wholesale price that we receive from our wholesalers. So they have their own premium, and then we look at the market price and we set a daily fix for our business that will transact. We basically buy and sell everything daily, so that we'll collect all of the orders from our members that want to sell to us, sell back to us, and then we'll sell and buy at 10 a.m. every morning. And so it's a market-based price for gold and silver. In the case of gold backs, there's a formula that is essentially pegged to gold spot as well. So it has a fixed premium, essentially, so that over time that premium won't erode for people who purchased them before. So that's important to have determinism and understanding where the value will be for a derivative type product like gold back. But in the case of gold and silver, those come directly from UPMA, from the LBMA markets.
Maybe I
Does that make sense?
just do one with, yeah. So I think when you're thinking about gold, you need to think about form and location, right? You have like local London gold, right? So that's you're actually specifying where this gold is, and is it in good delivery bars? Is it in jewelry? Is it in coin? They all carry different premiums based on kind of those two factors: form, location, and I guess purity as well. And so to come up with a currency in the US, we actually have a currency. We have the gold dollar, and we've had that for our entire history, except for 20 years. So I think that it kind of makes sense to do that. And as far as Utah is concerned, I think that, as pointed out by several commentators, having the gold here in Utah makes it more valuable to Utahns. So if you have, a systemic collapse or failure or whatever, then it's available to them. So those are just my comments on the question.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Other questions?
Yeah,
Representative Ivory.
Got a couple of questions. So the nature of the study, what we're here about is to study the role of precious metals in augmenting, stabilizing, ensuring the economic security, prosperity for the state, families, residents, businesses of the state. And, each of you have your separate private business case, which is great, and that's laudable, right? And what we're looking at is the business case, the use case rather, for the state in rainy day scenario, other scenarios. How do we translate what you shared with us into the use case for the state? If you would, maybe Jason would start, and that's our study, right? Business case is great. We want to see businesses thrive and prosper, and very excited about that. But the use case for the state.
Well, I think you go back to the slide I said as to why the state gets involved, and obviously that's what you're exploring here. And I said the two things I thought were most important. I think there's probably three things that are most important. One is that you're protecting the rights of citizens to use gold and silver. And of course, we've seen in the past when we get systemic gold, when we get systemic issues in the financial system, the federal governments have in the past, let's just say they confiscated gold at one point. We don't want that to happen again. I don't think the state authorizing gold as currency would make that very difficult, if not impossible, for the feds to do that. Certainly not without any kind of confrontation. So I think, you know, a small company like Glint could never hope to be able to defend those rights the citizens have, the state has. And so what is the use case? Well, the state is protecting that right for them to use gold and silver as currency. The second thing then is that the impediment that capital gains tax does have on gold when it's not specie legal tender is one that there's a friction to being able to use it as money. And of course, the state is within the state's power to make sure that there's no capital gains tax from a state's perspective. But as has been discussed, I think, at other times and around this committee, the right of the constitutional right of people to be able to use gold as money if it's authorized by the state should mean that the IRS cannot charge capital gains tax if it is both legal tender and functional money. And so I think that's obviously got to be, in my view, one of the main things the state needs to be working on and working through. And then the last one is about confidence that you give your citizens and clarity. Now, for instance, I know because we're already operating within your existing frameworks, you know, there's the local, state and federal rules around payments, for instance, and you know, we currently comply with all of those, and we've built processes and systems and have a lot of experience in dealing within that framework. But there are things that the state, I think, should do to enhance that, because of course the existing rules, regulations and audits around payments don't include gold. So I think you've got to think, where are the gaps? And I'd be encouraging the state to look at, for instance, making sure that they are the instigators of the audit of the gold in a customer's account, as one example. The state also, if it really wants to make gold and silver money, should be considering making sure that, you know, is the state prepared to back its legislation with action? Are you prepared, as the state, prepared to be able to receive gold and silver in payment of taxes? Sorry, yeah, in taxes or any other types of payments that might be required. And again, for me, it's just another way to pay. You know, we've tried to make it very easy with our product to make it just like another way to pay. And so with a peer-to-peer transaction with an app, there's no reason why the Treasury Department can't have, you know, their own gold currency account, as you might with your bank. I mean, I'm sure you have lots of bank accounts. You could easily have a gold and silver account, and there's no reason why when people come to pay, they can pay with debit card, credit card, or have actually paid with gold or silver directly. So I think there's a number of things there that the state needs to consider.
I'll let Larry go on this one, and then I can add some.
Yeah, just a couple of points. So I like your summary there, Jason. I think that really the first 2 points are critically important, but the state has actually done those. We did that in 2011. We recognize gold and silver legal tender as, you know, legal tender in the state, and remove the state capital gains tax. That's gone. So the next point is really the taxation point. But even before we get there, I think the big opportunity for the state is similar to, it's akin to NASA commercializing the Artemis moonshot, right? NASA is reaching out to all these commercial, you know, like SpaceX and Blue Origin and so forth, and they're saying, hey, this problem is bigger than what we can do on our own. Let's bring everybody, let's huddle here and get everybody to contribute. So what I would see, I think the great opportunity here is the state could take the bill that you passed and they could buy, you know, a bunch of gold bars and stick them in the vault. What does that do for the people and the businesses of the state? It doesn't really meet the criteria of what we're trying to accomplish here. What I envision and would recommend is that the treasurer, you know, recommend legislation that would encourage the creation of these trust companies. So you actually create an infrastructure that is for this complementary currency, so that can work hand in hand with existing financial institutions, banks, credit unions, which are federally regulated because of the FDIC, the Fed, the federal regulator, they have their hand in the monetary system of the nation. This would be an opportunity to create something that exists in Utah or in each state, state by state. This could be a model for other states where you say, this is going to be totally regulated at the state level. So we're going to have these trust companies. You will have depositors will retain ownership of their deposits. That's kind of a distinctive thing. And so if the state, for example, said, hey, we're going to take this portion of our rainy day fund, and we've got 10 different trust companies in the form, some by banks, some by non-banks, and we're going to use them. And we're going to go ahead and put it into those systems, and we're going to kickstart a gold economy for the people of the state. And we're going to encourage the banks and credit unions to participate in that by offering these gold lines of credit, so they're connected in so that people can transact, like Jason has described to us, they can transact on the paper side of the ledger or on the gold side of the ledger. So that's kind of what I would suggest. And in terms of paying taxes, I really do think that the qualified business unit is really good for people that convert from gold back to paper. A very simple system. You just take whatever the tax period is, you take your average rate and you apply it to your gain or loss, and it's one number that goes onto your tax return. Very, very simple. You don't have to do all this first in, first out, complicated, what's my basis in this particular piece of gold that I sold in order to buy a loaf of bread. That's really the problem, is if you have, the IRS auditors come in, they're going to say, okay, well, what's your basis? Show me your, okay, well, we're going to assume the worst if you don't have the documentation. And then we're going to calculate your capital gain. This could be totally capital gains free under the existing system because we have money, we have gold money. And so it's just, anyway, I'd love to see the state do that, just kickstart a new gold infrastructure.
Sophia.
Thank you. Just, yes, listening to the comments and going back to Representative Ivory's question on the use case for the state, it seems like it's becoming a little more clear to me anyway, that there's really two different things we need to be looking at. One being just as a state, an investor as a state, and having that investment as part of our portfolio. And then secondarily is this market for broadening the transactional level of just using gold for paying taxes and things like that. To me, those are two different things that require two different frameworks. And so just, as we're having these conversations, like I've been thinking a lot about Representative Ivory's question, just what exactly are we talking about when, with this last legislation? And in my mind, it was more focused on the first, which is us as a state and having this be part of our investment portfolio, and how do we do that, and put the framework there to enable the state to do that. And then secondarily this. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I think that as we move forward, the framework that needs to be put in place for both of those, I guess, ecosystems, to me, I think are different things. And I think it's good for us to explore both, but I do think that we should think about them as two different spheres. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sophia. And let me just jump in. I think you're exactly right. And really the first one is mostly taken care of. We simply need a legislation that will allow us to charge the costs of storage and kind of the physical components. We need to be able to charge that back to the gold holding itself. That to me, the first piece is much easier, and is pretty much in place, other than this small piece of legislation that we need a legislative fix that will allow us to actually go out and buy the gold. So we've already gone out into the marketplace and spoken with different providers, including Brinks. And that's a much easier, I think, lift, because it's something that a lot of institutions, particularly, central banks around the world, that's nothing new. Where things get a little bit more interesting, I think, is where you start talking about transactional gold in an economy like the state of Utah. That's where there's a lot of uncharted territory. And I think from my perspective, that's really where we need to be focusing a lot of our I guess brain power here is looking at how do we facilitate the use of precious metals so that people's purchasing power, that they can retain that purchasing power, and that we can transact in the economy like is spoken of in the Constitution, where we can use gold and silver essentially. This is a new kind of idea that we're trying to tackle in 21st century with all the technology that we have today that we haven't had in the recent past. Can we do this in a way that makes sense, and can we move the capital gains tax, federal tax issue, that debate, can we move that closer to a resolution in our favor, so that people aren't getting hammered by that capital gains when they're using gold and silver as transactional specie legal tender. Anything to add there?
Yeah, I'm just curious, other payment systems, right? We've heard about your payment systems. Are there, and you're in the industry, are there other payment systems that you're aware of that are precious metals related that could inform us on the kinds of things that you share with us?
Gold money,
Yeah.
Gold money is not a payment
it's
system.
not a payment system.
No. There are, people often ask me, why has nobody else done this? I don't know. I mean, it's complicated. It takes time, a lot of money. We're the only platform in the USA that runs and allows you to use gold as money in real-time electronic payments. There are lots of different ways you can buy gold and sell gold. There are systems, as we've seen, which allow you to have a debit card that you can sell your gold and transfer funds into it, but then of course you can't spend the gold you haven't transferred and sold. What I tried to do, why did I even set this up? Well, I felt the same problems that a lot of your residents are feeling. It feels like when you're trying to save and get ahead, and save in a currency that's constantly devaluing in its purchasing power, and we saw one of those charts earlier. I saw one of those charts earlier on. It feels like you're swimming against the tide. I mean, it's absolutely immoral that people's currency, their hard-earned money, the promises between men and women, in terms of the prompt that they owe each other, defined as currency, should be eroded in the way that they have been since we came off the gold standard. It's not a fair system. And I mentioned at the beginning, those closest to the money supply benefit disproportionately from everybody else. First of all, the government, because they're able to give unsustainable promises to the electorate. The US government and governments all over the world, but especially the US government, has been able to do that more than anybody because it was the reserve currency of the world. And of course, since they came off the gold standard in 1971, it's been on a petrodollar standard. That has ended. The IMF have written articles on it. Everybody knows that is ending. And actually, it's no longer the only reserve currency in the world. What does that really mean? Well, it means that that it's not as easy as it used to be for the government to be able to borrow more money. It's really simple. 30-year Treasury bonds have come under increasing pressure. Recently, 5-year Treasury bonds have come under increasing pressure. What does that mean? It means that if they can't raise any more money, and let's just remember, the interest payments alone on the US government debt are bigger than the US defense budget, okay? And there's no way these things can be easily fixed. Most of the budget that it goes on are things that people aren't going to want to change, So what's going to happen? Well, the central bank's going to have to step in and buy that debt again. What does that mean? It's the fancy word they came up with in 2008 when I came up with the idea for Glyn, which is quantitative easing. Basically means printing money again. What does that lead to? Inflation. And so this is something, the genie's out of the bottle, it's not going back in again. And so the feeling I've had all through my life I thought it was very innovative, and I was involved in all kinds of things, virtual reality, e-commerce, but every time I tried to save money, it just seemed that everything was getting more and more expensive. Houses are not, they haven't got any better than they were when my parents were alive, when they could afford one house easily on one person's wage. It's the money that's become worthless, and that's not fair. Those people next to the governments who benefit are the banking people in the financial system as well, and those are the richest in society who borrow huge amounts of money. There's a good reason why 5 men own more than 50% of America, the bottom 50% of America, the same amount of wealth. They're very clever guys, but it's not just because of that. They've had a hose pipe of money pumped at them, and so have a lot of people in the markets. That's not fair.
I believe you're hitting on the state's use case on that. Susan, I forgot his name. We stood in this very room in 2015, was it, with then Senator Henderson, as we were doing the Financial Ready Utah, and the president of the American Institute of CPAs, and you and others, as we were working on the contingency planning for federal funds diminishing in amount or value. The head of the American Institute of CPAs, standing right there, said, "We're pulling the fire alarm."
Right, that was Greg Anton.
Greg Anton, he said the economic earthquake is so much more certain and of greater magnitude than the physical earthquake that we prepare for every year and do our Ready Utah preparations. And I think that, in my mind, I think that really is the state use case, is as we're seeing the entire global South move away from the dollar for some reason, right? We're seeing new economic systems. We're seeing arrival to the SWIFT with the Shanghai Cooperative Organization and Enbridge and all of the things that are moving, and central banks buying gold at record rates. They're moving away for a reason. And so I look at that, and kind of a conversation you and I had a few months ago, how do we pay police and fire and teachers and healthcare workers as that continues to play out and other nations run for the exit from the dollar, which is happening. I think that really is, in my mind, the biggest state use case. Sophia, as you were bringing up, clearly the investment side, but I want to make sure we've got continuity of government in the state, that no matter what happens to the dollar and the investment world, and Susan, we've been working on this contingency planning for more than 10 years now. I really think that becomes an issue. Maybe Susan, you might comment on how that affects the contingency planning work that we've been doing.
Before we go there, sorry, I want to get to Gary's question. He's been waiting for a while there. Gary,
thanks very much, Marlo. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I'm certainly no expert on gold, and I acknowledge that right in the very beginning of this discussion. But the choice, at least, and obviously I'm very new to this whole dialogue, but if you think about the question that at least was on the table when I joined this discussion 4 weeks or so ago, was should the state of Utah invest in gold as a better alternative to offset the ravages of inflation and the potential decline in the dollar? And I think it's important to come back to that question and say precious metals or gold is one of the alternatives. There are lots of other alternatives. And if you go back over time, so we're kind of asking ourselves the wrong question. We're saying, so if we actually, kept our money in dollars, we bought a house and we kept our money in dollars over time, we wouldn't have enough dollars in order to pay for that house. However, if we had invested in, common equity during that time period, on average, larger, common equity would have grown at 8% a year. And you could have easily afforded a $175,000 home at the end of that time period. Not because you happen to be in dollars, but because you happen to be invested in something other than just holding a currency and allowing the currency to devalue. And so, at least for me, there clearly are circumstances under which gold would be a useful thing. And the kind of the second question that was put on the table a minute ago is, I think, a worthwhile question. Should the industry for precious metal in Utah be supported and helped in ways that can make it more powerful? But I think if you had someone who is a complete neutral on this question, so we've seen a couple of presentations, not today, but in last week, where people had sort of a perspective on the deterioration in the value of the dollar relative to gold. And I think the real question is, what is the best way for the portfolio of the state of Utah to be invested to ensure that we're in great shape to be able to withstand even more significant rolls of inflation? And I think if you sort of get a neutral kind of perspective on that, it's not quite so clear that gold is the absolute right answer to that question. It's not a bad answer, but over time it would have been a less attractive answer than if, for example, we have problems with Social Security because there's those funds have never been invested in a way that would make sense. They could have been invested in gold, and had they been invested in gold, they would have done better than they've done. They could have been invested in equities, and had they been invested properly in equities, they would have done better than they've done in gold. And so it's a little bit about what's the right alternatives that exist, and is this the very best way to take a portion of the state debt, a portion of the state reserves, and have them be invested for long-term protection of the citizens of the state of Utah?
Yeah, thank you, Gary, for that question, and I am happy to go through that with you. It's when we're talking about the different portfolios, what we're looking at here is the short-term portfolios, but specifically the rainy day funds. And the reason, and I can go into the analysis on that with you, but we've got a bunch of different longer-term portfolios that do invest in equities. Really, the focus being on precious metals is because the rainy day funds may be needed on a short notice. How do you diversify a portfolio that could be needed on short notice, particularly in a downturn? And so anyway, there's some specific analysis there that I should probably just take you through, and I'm happy to take anybody else through it that we put together for the legislative session when we were looking specifically at gold as a physical investment instrument, and why is it different, and why would it be in just the rainy day funds as opposed to some of these longer term portfolios. So I apologize because the conversation has narrowed here because we are just focusing on some very specific kinds of portfolios that are separate from the longer term portfolios, and then we're also focused on the purchasing power of individuals in the state and the state itself under a difficult economic scenario where you have liabilities that you have to pay out, and you have a currency that you're usually using that is losing its value. So anyway, I can have that conversation with anybody who would like to, but it's really kind of a separate discussion, I would say, around the equity. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the other things is that really gold I don't see gold as an investment. It's no one else's liability. It is just money. In the same way, the dollar is just the dollar, except that is the liability of the government. If you're talking about, if you put your dollars into a vault, and of course it doesn't get a yield, but if you put it at risk, then of course it does get a yield. You put it in the bank, they lend it out, so to speak, and you get a yield on it. And if you want to invest your dollars in the stock market, then of course you can get a yield on it. But you're investing in a risk-on asset. If you look at gold the other way, gold is just as money, then of course you can still get a yield on gold. This often isn't talked about very often. You guys have yields on gold. There are lots of companies that offer yields on gold. And so you can, it's not just, it's something that can actually get a yield, but you've got to perceive it as money. When Russia invaded Ukraine, all stock markets and cryptocurrencies plummeted. Of course, gold went up because it was the only one of the very few risk-off assets. And as you said, in times of need, it's often the only thing that has any value.
Jason, the one thing that I would add to that is that really what we're talking about is non-debasing money. That's the distinction. Because, you know, what you have with the Federal Reserve note, it's designed to lose value. It's supposed to. That's part of the Federal Reserve mandate. So all we're saying is, this is not another investment. This is non-debasing currency that literally someone could stick under their mattress, pull out 10, 20 years later, and buy the same basket of goods. That's what we're talking about. So it's
Or invested in a performance vehicle denominated in
exactly
gold rather than
and actually something it really not that much to do to give your citizens the rights to do that.
Yeah.
To finish your question, because you asked, are there other alternatives? You know, I think the other approach that we've seen people try to take is through crypto based on stable coins that they say, right? And that's a complicated space, and a lot of folks are just a little bit spooked by crypto. So I think that most of our clients are, you know, maybe latter half of their life focused on something they can trust, they can understand. But there are different vehicles. Kinesis is an example of one that does that. They have a token based on gold back, so it's redeemable for gold back, as well as gold and silver coins. So for folks who like to transact that way, there are solutions that could be considered in the basket, but you want to give people different options. Some are more comfortable with just a credit card. Some want to do something in a trust, you know, so I think looking at different options is useful.
Yeah, and I think that the store of value is important, because when we're talking about the rainy day funds, right now, they're all in money market. It's all just basically a money market fund. And why is that the case? Because we're taking as little risk as we can. And so it's short-term liquidity, because you don't know when you're going to need it. You're going to need it on a moment's notice. So this is an alternative, I guess, to a money market fund where you're essentially holding monies of the state that could be needed overnight, and you're basically holding it in a different cash instrument, essentially, a store of value, right?
That's exactly the method. What we talked about to groups is, you think of the modern portfolio theory, which has a risk-free asset. You mix it with risk assets based on your tolerance. If you substitute things like you know, treasury instruments, cash instruments with gold, then you're providing basically a risk-free solution that's not going to lose its value. And then you can add on top of that risk elements that you want to take. So that's a different way of thinking of the modern portfolio theory that we all learn in business school.
Yeah. Good question, though. These are really, really great. Joe.
I think this is a fascinating discussion. I'm really disappointed that the content that I sent around hasn't made its way to everybody, because I think Sophia's point and Gary's point and the conversation that's just been had may have been helped by the investment case for gold that we put forward. And if you think about gold in the context of adding it to a diversified portfolio, simply put, that first point that I think Sophia highlighted, which I think is spot on. It has returns. It has diversification benefits, meaning that when risk assets are rising and wealth is being created, people are consuming gold. And when risk assets are declining and actually people are getting worried, people are flocking to it as a safe haven. It has the right diversification benefits when it's added as a component to a diverse portfolio. I think the other element that I'd highlight is it's wicked liquid, which we all know, we've talked about. But back on the point of returns, if you look 3, 5, 10, 20 years, average returns for gold, price appreciation of gold over those periods of time is either in line with equities or exceeds equities. Now, we never tell anyone to own nothing but gold. The way we approach it from a strategic investment perspective is to say, find the optimal amount that will improve your risk-adjusted return, improve your ability to manage in drawdown periods, and ultimately complement your portfolio. And we help people understand that bonds and equities right now, in particular in markets like we're in, start to correlate similarly, behave the same way, both like risk assets. So that bond protection you buy breaks down. And in the context of gold, that's when it works better than bonds. So we're saying, hey, look, if you want protection, you might want to pare back bonds and you might want to add gold. Now, that's how we think about it in the investment context. In the context of other alternatives, I think it's really been an interesting dynamic. I think Jason's done a lot of work to crack this nut. I think to his compliment, he's the one organization that we've seen as the World Gold Council that's been focused on a use case. And I haven't had an opportunity to meet either Mark or Lawrence, so it's very nice to see you both. But I know that Jason's been focused on a use case and actually been laser focused on getting it done. Most other organizations that have approached the gold-backed token construct, I stay away from using stable coins because under federal kind of control, they're trying to put a definition around that right now, which has nothing to do with a single asset behind a token. Most of those initiatives have been very lacked any focus. They've just been a hammer looking for a nail. You throw out an idea, they say, we can fix that. You throw up another problem, they can fix it. And they just have all kinds of confused objectives. And I think that they lack a focus on a use case. And I think you're talking on that second question about a really unique use case of simply saying, how can we make our world in Utah a little safer for our people on the ground? And I think the only thing I'd add to the questions that you're asking is, what role would you want the state to play when you're going to need pressure to be released by having that gold system in place? How would you expect the state to step in and help? Is there an opportunity, or is there a challenge? Is there a need? Because it might be a natural place for you to benefit your longer term portfolio needs by having a system of, a monetary system that's working and being used locally. So those are the thoughts that I'd share. And I think, Mark, you're right. I think there hasn't been a lot, and a lot of people have gotten very confused by the crypto space, and you should completely separate that. That is pure risk, pure speculation, very challenged in terms of a use case. So when you hear a Bitcoin idea, move it to the side and stay in the world of understanding the asset we're talking to, which is, a 5,000-year-old asset and gold.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think it's important for us to keep in mind there's really two different issues here. One is the investment case for gold, and the other one is the monetary transactional case for gold, right? And because it's easy to kind of mix the two when we're thinking about gold. It's easy to think of it as an investment, but we're really thinking about it as a store of value, I would say, more than anything. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. Kevin, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. I worked for John Templeton for a decade. I think he was one of the greatest investors of all time. I hold a chartered financial analyst designation. I understand portfolio diversification and recognize, the value at asset class. I think you, Treasurer, have it right. In the rainy day fund, the value gold adds is diversification. It is not, however, an investment. I don't believe gold is ever, and gold mines are investments. Gold is money, and at any time you would add a second currency, you get diversification benefits if it's a stable currency, and so it carries that kind of function. At least that's my perspective from the chartered financial analyst designation, the decade I worked for John Templeton, and the 40 years I've been in the investment industry. And I also agree with the idea in the longer term funds, gold may not add as much value as stocks or other things in longer term funds because they're actually investments. But if you need the money in a short term basis, gold is a great form of money to hold.
Thank you. All right, well, we are over our a lot of time. It's been a great discussion. Thank you, everyone, and we'll send around information, including the minutes from this meeting and hopefully the presentations, and welcome any questions. We did send a document out that had questions. Feel free to add to those questions. We've broken it down by meeting topic, and we're open to any topics or additions that you think we need to address in these meetings. So please take a look at those documents that we pass around and add your input, and we just appreciate all of the input here. And for those in the room, we've got a little socializing to do here, and feel free to ask additional questions. And thank you all, and look forward to seeing you all next time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.